So very sorry for that. This is the last few minutes, part 2 of chapter 15, Clearing Away the Religious Fog, of Beautiful Outlaw by John Eldredge. Now there's a tough pill to swallow. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus has 34 intimate encounters with an individual. Intimate, defined as when someone in particular is singled out for mention, or receives a word or touch from Jesus, or Jesus receives a word or touch from them. Of the 34, one takes place in church. In the shorter Gospel of Mark, there are 26 such encounters recorded. 2 take place at church. Furthermore, all of the most famous stories about Jesus, his birth, baptism, trial in the desert, calling of his disciples, turning water into wine, raising the dead, transfiguration, walking on water, feeding of the 5,000, Sermon on the Mount, calming the storm, the Last Supper, dark night in Gethsemane, crucifixion and resurrection, not one of them takes place in a church. Not one. This is no coincidence. Jesus came to the most religious people on earth, and much of what he had to do in order to bring them to God was to free them from their religion. Some of the readers are really going to get their shorts in a bunch over this. Those of you having the hardest time with this notice, do you consider yourself a religious person? Let me be clear, this is not an anti-church statement, and I'm not anti-church. I believe we need worship, sacrament, instruction, community, and service. I go to church. I encourage you to. But you must stick to the facts. One of the most striking aspects of the stories of Jesus told in the Gospels is how very few of the events related by the stories take place within religious setting. The fact is, if you wanted an intimate encounter with Jesus, you would have been far more likely to find it outside church. And this is still true today. For heaven's sake, there are 168 hours in your week. Are you really going to say that the 1 or 2 you spend at church are more important to God than the other 166? That's religious spirit stuff. The spiritual life is meant to be lived out in everyday life. In this sense, Jesus was a very spiritual man, but never a religious one. This is what is still so hard to believe. It is hard to believe that this marvelous work of salvation is presently taking place in our neighborhoods, in our families, in our governments, in our schools and businesses, in our hospitals, on the roads we drive, and down the corridors we walk, among people whose names we know. The ordinariness of Jesus was a huge roadblock to belief in his identity and work in the days of his flesh. It is still a roadblock. We should expect Jesus everywhere, anytime. Furthermore, when church actually inoculates people to a true experience of Jesus, or to an experience of the true Jesus, then yes, I am very anti that sort of church. All the men and women I've met who have spent decades in church and still do not know God. If the people you loved came down with cancer and were told to faithfully attend a center for recovery, but at the end of 10 years were no better, wouldn't you be mad about that? Wouldn't you at least say that it's time to look for a different clinic? The merry bells ring out, the people kneel. Up goes the man of God before the crowd. With voice of honey and with eyes of steel, he drones your humble gospel to the proud. Nobody listens, less than the wind that blows are all your words to us. You died to save. O Prince of Peace, O Sharon's dewy rose, how mute you lie within your vaulted grave. The stone the angel rolled away with tears is back upon your mouth these 1,000 years. The simple test is this: Do you encounter Jesus in church or in any of the Christian things you do? Are you drawn into a genuine understanding and experience of Jesus as we find him in the Gospels? If not, there's a problem. Don't forget, Jesus healed a man on the Sabbath. The religious leaders decided to kill him. This spirit is mighty nasty and as slippery as an oyster. Friends, if you would know Jesus as he is, if you would let him simply be himself with you, then run. Run as fast as your 2 feet will carry you from anything that smacks of religion. Thank you so much for joining me for chapter 15. I'll be back with chapter 16 soon.